Yeah, I've got a question about how we deal with the government position on this in terms of the way they're presenting it most recently from Stephen Conroy and Kevin Rudd. What they're basically saying is that this filter is just a type of regulation in the same way that they regulate radio and television. They're basically running the argument that the internet has been unregulated all this time, and we just have to bring in this very normal, very well accepted form of regulation. And it actually makes it sound quite acceptable when they put it that way. And I think we really need to understand that argument and to have a counter argument for it, because I think it's a totally false argument. But I'm just wondering what you actually think about that and how you might actually deal with that when they present it in that way.
Thanks very much for the question. I will actually take it up with my colleague, Senator Scott Ludlam, is a person from the Greens who's running this, looks after this portfolio federally, so it's a good question. Look, off the top of my head, and partly I am giving a simple answer, but basically this plays out in the media, and that's where we have to be able to get a very logical argument to combat what they're saying. I think we say the internet is already regulated. What you are talking about is censorship, and censorship will not save our children. I really think we've got to get it down to those small grabs. And I know a lot of you might find that frustrating, but I suppose because of the game that I'm in, that I often see when arguments get complicated, people's eyes glaze over, the journalists stop listening to you, and we've lost the moment. So I just think we've got to go on the front foot all the time and say it's already regulated. What you're doing is not going to stop children being exposed to pornography. You need to educate them, and you need to ensure that the parents are working with them, not just thinking everything's okay.
G'day, I'm Shaz. I'm a local resident of Parramatta and an Australian citizen, proud one at that, and I love the internet. And I want to thank you for coming out here today and supporting Block the Filter and this cyber-friendly family picnic. I'm just going to ask you, I represent Stop the Filter in that sense that we are the protest movement, I guess you could say, of stopping the filter. And we believe that the best way to do it is by protest and a city protest. And we're wondering if the Greens Party will be willing to support us in that, a protest, a peaceful assembly, to raise great awareness to the rest of Sydney. And would they be willing to even go far as support us with public liability and other things like that? And if the Greens support one of the other ways of fighting this, besides our picnic, would be maybe a city protest in the next month before the bill is passed.
Thanks very much for the question. Oops. On the issue of liability, I think that could be possible. Need to speak to our party people. We often assist organisations with liability, but I must admit I'm not up on it, so we'll talk about that. We'll get each other's details. In terms of the protest, we'd be keen to support. We regularly support peaceful protests, and we also have an e-brief that goes out to thousands of people where we advertise things like that. So we'd be keen to talk to you about that as well, because the coming few weeks are the critical time when we've really got to get going on this.
Excellent. Joshua Jackson, truthnews.com.au. I'm just wondering, how would we, as the Greens member here, the whole notion that this is about child porn and stuff is so ridiculous to me, because I mean, I've been on the web my whole life, since the mid 80s, and I've been to all sorts of corners. I've never come across this stuff ever. And, I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but I don't see how kids can... And look, kids can turn on the TV at cartoon time in the mornings and get some grinding girls wearing nothing on television. Where is the consistency? So, also, I just want to ask, on the position of, so for me, it's more of a thing that they actually... It's political talk that the government would want to censor. So this stems into hate speech, which, I mean, I'm no racist, I'm very anti-racism, but if someone says something that's against the Israeli policies against Palestine, that could be categorised as a hate speech or something against Jews, and then maybe that would just be shut down if there is a movement to say, hey, let's have some peace in the Middle East or something like that, or trying to figure out, have some conversations or dialogue. And is this something that the Greens is going to try and push, or the government, or anyone that's, the Pirate Party or anyone that's involved in this movement, to try and say, hey, let's just stop with the lie about the child. This is just ridiculous. Anyway, what child looks at child porn? It's adults. Let's arrest them instead of blocking it. Let's arrest them. Find the sick, buggers behind this and arrest them. And let's focus on the real issue, which is government growth and growing, political dissent.
Thanks for that. You've summed it up really well. Look, I often think the talk about pornography says more about the people who are talking about it than what their real intent is. Like, you've summed it up. That's okay, I'll hold it. I'll hold it. Okay, thanks. So look, you've summed it up really well. I think that's part of our message, that it's not going to stop children being exposed to pornography. Some of the earlier speakers made the really important point, is the way most pornography moves around is not on the internet, it's by file sharing. And the other area, and what the government's proposing, is not going to impact on file sharing. And the other area where young people can run into problems is by cyber stalking in chat rooms. Now, that's been all over the tabloids this week, some examples of it. Again, what the government is proposing is not going to change anything in that area. And it goes back to why our emphasis needs to be on educating parents, educating children, getting healthy communication going between older people and younger people, just how you use the net. And what I suppose really disturbs me, and it's going a little bit away from your question, but I just did want to say this. Like, I came across the internet in the mid-1990s, early 1990s, when I'm working for a community group called AidWatch. And I can remember being so excited by it. It really blew me away. And I imagine there's quite a few of you here who didn't grow up with the internet but come across it at some time in your life. But the generations coming through now are going to grow up with it. That is just part of their life. And that is so fantastic. The opportunities it provides, the connections, the education, just the choices that they can make in terms of their communities, in so many things that we're yet to come to grips with. And to have this nasty, sort of very cynical approach with putting a big brother in place that's going to make, which is really sending a message out of you've got to be fearful, you've got to be relying on other people, which we know can't work, but it can add a really dangerous element, to my mind, to the democratic process. It is so destructive. And that's one of the things that I find very troubling, that when young people should be growing up with something that's so fantastic, that is just like we grew up with books and pens and typewriters and things like that, they grow up with this other tool that is just mind-blowingly amazing, and that they should be free to enjoy and welcome the great beauty of that. A question that I would like to put to you that came to me when I was listening to the question, which is again like, how do we get our message across? We've been using terms like no filter, no clean feed. Can I tell you, people don't understand it. They really don't, what that means. That's why I've used the term a lot in censorship, because people know that word. I think we've actually got to come up with language that makes it easier for the person walking down Church Street on Parramatta who uses the internet but has not heard about this, can relate to what we're talking about and will be worried about what they're doing. And I've got to say, I don't think the word no clean feed and no filter actually works. So I think that that's something we've got to take on board, because what we really need to do is find more allies in this campaign. and it was excellent to hear about the impact on minorities. But there's heaps of other, the union movement. Imagine if Howard was in, or Abbott, we get Abbott back, who has said that he likes work choices still, and they get more hardline, and they happen to end up with control of the Senate again. I mean, who knows what's down the track? We never thought that the coalition would control the Senate, but they did. For 4 years, they had control of the Senate. Imagine that happens in 10 years' time. What does Abbott do then to the union movement? Does he really close down a whole lot of their sites? And I tell you, the union movement's getting really savvy with their online campaign.